Panelists. We have Ziad, Transport Warehouse and Logistics Group Director from P&G. We have Serge, Head of Transport and Customs from Schneider Electric. We have Shailen Shukla, Chief Logistics Officer from Wiz Holdings. Ramit Mahajan, Head Supply Chain Enablement from Henkel. And Girish VS, Director Education from Institute of Supply Chain Management. I would request Girish to kindly lead the discussion.
Thank you, Jason. Welcome, Ziad, Ramit, Shailen, and Serge. We have been, we are where the tire meets the road, right? The guys who have to deliver no matter what. To paraphrase what the US Post Department says, whether it is rain or shine, we deliver. That's our job. And as logistics as a function, we need to examine how do we change ourselves from our previous style of working. We need to examine how is it that we have been working and where are we going. We also need to look at, so when we are having such uncertainties all around, we need to kind of realize, we need to kind of get together and see what is it that we are, where are we and where are we going. So probably if I could open with you, Shailen, and I have a fantastic panel of experts with me, Ziad, Serge, Shailen, and Ramit. Shailen, if I could start with you, where are we today as far as logistics as a function is concerned in the MENA region? What is it that is changing, and what do we need to, essentially we'll take it from there. What is it that it is today, and what are the major changes that are happening, which we need to be aware of?
Yeah, hi Girish, I think a very logical question. I would like to begin with that, it's really pandemic time for the logistics people, and people are overwhelmed with the kind of work. I would like to give you my own example. During the entire lockdown, there was not a single day when I did not go to the warehouse. There was not a single day when we were not doing e-commerce deliveries and B2B deliveries wherever people were accepting. And people were falling sick, people were getting fined, people were angry because they were not getting their orders in time. Couriers were overwhelmed, too many orders, too little capacity. And so everybody was under a lot of pressure. So that was the situation during this time, though things have improved. But I would say that, a lot of realignment of capacity will happen, enhancement of capacity will happen, which should lead us into better times, and we should be more organized. And almost everybody who was in brick and mortar or so-called omni-channel is trying to go online and be more omni-channel than what they were before. So, things are changing, and there'll be more and more pressure on logistics professionals as a whole.
Thank you, Shailen. Serge, if I were to come to you, we have looked at what the current issues and what the current direction of supply chains are, and that even in spite of the pandemic, the logistics as a function has managed to deliver credibly well. If I'm not mistaken, you also would endorse that. What are the, if you were to look at it, what are the inefficiencies that crept in during this period, and what were the kind of methodology you have used to meet those inefficiencies or to correct those inefficiencies?
Okay, thank Girish for the question. I think it's a kind of relevant question for what I think everyone and all the companies was not ready for this pandemic situation. Okay, and all effort and situation goes to the heroes that what we had in the warehousing, in the manufacturing, in each every angle to support the business. but really the inefficiency what we see in the market is linked to a digital solution. Okay, most of the global companies took those decisions of digitization 5 years back. Okay, to start implementing ERPs, to start having some IoT, some I can say blockchain, but at a very early stage. But those are really pinpointing some companies during the pandemic situation, and we really see that the digital tool was a key for the business to run the operation during the pandemic situation. I'll give you some example. We at Schneider Electric, we had deployed control tower capabilities last year, mid of 2019, to cover all the Middle East and Africa perimeter. When we deployed that at that time, it was a vision for the 2 to 3 years time. Okay, we were not expecting a pandemic or something like that, so we had a vision to build a control tower visibility so we can give a right level of transparency and visibility to our customers by working as a proactive manner. And this implementation helped us quite a lot in our operation during this situation. In terms of inefficiencies, we didn't stop any of our operation during this crisis. We were running around 60–70% of the capacity. Why? Because we were able to get information earlier. Example from China, from Europe. Okay, we have a blank selling here. We have a air freight capacity from Spain, for example, because this is one of the high country where we get impacted. So by having that, we're able to generate an additional lead time, so we can inform the customer more in advance that will have a delay and they will get this good at such time. You know, so that was, I think, one of the key elements that helped us the business to run during the situation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, most of the time, if the customer is kept informed of developments, he is willing to cooperate with you. He is willing to hear you out, and he is willing to work with you. And having that ability to see across nodes is a challenge that logistics had for a long time. We most often we see one node up and down, but to see across the chain is something that we will take up and we will come to. Ziad, if I could ask you a question. I'm going to stay with the initial challenges that are being there in the logistics scenario. One of the things that the pandemic did is that it has now created to a China +1 policy, where apart from China, we are going to look at other markets from which we need to source. We are also looking at shorter supply chains, simpler supply chains, which is going to have an impact on the way our logistics functions are structured. What is your take on the evolution of the structure that's coming through and the challenges that this is going to pose, where now you have a much more diversified supply base on the logistics as a function, essentially cross-border?
Sure. Excellent. Thank you, Girish. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. So the question is about how things are changing post the COVID pandemic in terms of supply chain network design and resilience in operations. In reality, you know, as they say, the COVID just exposed the weaknesses that were already there in your supply chain design, and the learnings from you know, the different experiences people had was that there is more that needs to be done. There is a different approach that needs to happen to protect your business. The challenges are both, as I said, on the local operation and also on the international trade. So in terms of the local operation, it's a lot of things related to the frontline workers who operate the factories and the distribution centers. How do you provide for social distancing? How do you protect them and their families in situations where you have lockdowns and so on? So automation plays a role there, and other things as well. not only frontline workers, but you also have many people, resources working from home. One of the key things is how do you make sure that your organization continues to engage, continues to deliver. And the one thing that you should not do is lower the expectation on performance, because organizations best perform when they're targeting excellence. If you start to lower your standards, you start to create more problems. Now, moving back to the international trade piece, obviously it depends on the scale of the company. It depends on your 3PL partners, your suppliers as well. So yes, for sure, where there's digital solutions, you need to have end-to-end visibility. You have to understand, where your shipments are at every point in time. That's for sure. But also in terms of like the sourcing strategy. So you need to have a business continuity plan. You need to know which sites would activate when other sites or other ports are shut down. You need to be able to do processes like port clearance in a touchless way. And the resilience plan goes beyond your operations that you control. You'll have to influence government relations. You have to make sure things like bank guarantees and so on are there to enable and facilitate the normal day-to-day operation. And also, you need to think about, okay, what do you do long-term? So you might do these things in a crisis management situation, but are you setting up yourself for a resilient long-term operation? Because everyone knows the new norm is not the old norm. It's not going to go back to that. So that's where people should start thinking and building resilience.
Yes, the unraveling of these supply chains in the last few months has led to a lot of changes when it comes to the logistics as a function. Ramit, if I could also ask you for your quick comment on the one of the issues that this creates is that you need to take a hard look at your logistics capacity. Are they in the right places where you need them to be? And if you are looking at new sources and supply bases, how do you build the capacity that you want in those areas? So what are the kind of challenges that you would like to bring out when you're going from a fairly established logistics process to something which is very dynamic?
Yeah, thanks, Girish. Maybe I'd also take a bit of a digression. So when this whole crisis began, I think we were all really quite on a very similar boat. None of us really knew what was going on. All of us were struggling to kind of start off the operations, start off the warehouses. And I sincerely believe, logistics probably had it much tougher than the other supply chain functions, simply because logistics had to be out there in the ground, on the ground, risking ourselves, which was quite different from, let's say, a planning or a customer service function where we had to, be in front of a computer or, a phone. Now, so it was a learning. It was a learning for all of us. I think a lot of it also was there was a learning even together. So when I say that, we actually learned along with our customers, along with our suppliers. There was a lot of interaction that we had among the customers and the suppliers to understand how we could open up our facilities, how we could actually get permissions for our warehouses. Very different from the way, from a regular logistics operation. I think the first couple of first few weeks were just trying to understand where we were headed. It was a very, very different challenge that at least I have ever faced in my career, and I'm sure it will be a similar case for the others. So, but yes, I think the learning came through. I think the logistics industry, the logistics professionals really delivered. We had the odd cases of these positive COVID positive cases in some of the warehouses, and we had to kind of quarantine, take the measures. But then I think in the end, it really came shining through. So yeah, there you have it. Thanks.
Yeah. Shailen, one of the things, if I could, yes, sorry, before I come to Shailen, yes, Ramit, you did bring out the issues related to the initial hiccups that we had, and how finally we needed to collaborate and get through. That's something that the crisis has taught us, the need to collaborate, not just one node up and down, but probably towards our extended supply tiers in the supply chain. That is a very valid learning from the crisis. Shailen, if I were to look at it from another perspective, one of the challenges that the crisis has thrown up also is in terms of last mile delivery. Today we have a lot of people who want home delivery, who prefer home delivery. The footfalls to the malls have reduced considerably, and there's been a sudden spike in the e-commerce and online markets. What are the issues and challenges there, and how are you addressing those challenges?
I think last mile visibility was one of the biggest challenge, apart from the capacity, to which I will come later. So last mile visibility was in a state where either you were dependent on a courier which was using a very basic, track and trace mechanism, or you were doing your own last mile delivery using your own vans or your own bikes, and you were not using a proper last mile delivery solution, or a lot of people were actually, including us, in the middle of a implementation of a last mile delivery software. So customers suffered a lot because of lack of proper visibility. So those who had the last mile delivery softwares in place were the winners. Those who were implementing and implemented during the pandemic were clearly the big gainers. But those who did not have proper track and trace systems, their businesses suffered, their customers suffered. And I would go to the extent that the largest, I don't want to name them, the biggest marketplaces, they also have access to the best technology, but they do not offer the last mile visibility, as a Uber would offer as to, the vehicle coming to you. So you just get 4 updates: dispatched, in transit, delivered, and maybe if there's a problem, then they will say that, okay, there was a problem. Beyond that, you have to call the call center and get updates, which is like very, very basic and prehistoric kind of a thing in today's world, when you can get live tracking through most of these softwares. I mean, why not offer it to the customer? Well, what are we scared of? So this was, I think, one of the biggest challenge. And apart from the capacity, which was limited, because most of the aggregators or so-called courier companies who have become aggregators are using, like leased resources in most of the countries. They are not using their own resources. And so there was a spike which was like 5x, 10x, and they did not have capacity. And these leased guys, they went to the guy who paid them best. And, the quality suffered, because again, you have to onboard new people, you have to, give them the training, they have to learn the routes, they have to learn the software, learn the, soft skills as to how to deliver and all that. So capacity and, last mile delivery visibility were 2 biggest issues, which caused, problems to the people who were not, properly equipped.
Yeah, yes. The last mile, there was an issue with capacity where we needed to build up capacity suddenly, and then we needed the technology also to back up the information sharing, which was pointed out by Ziad also. Ziad, if I could come back to you from this, there were 2 things that we talk about. One is how do we build capacity, and the second is also the issue of technology. Now, these 2 things lead, in my opinion, to 2 consequent actions. One is our ability to invest in them. So there has to be a level of investment into these functions. One way to look at this investment is that without it you don't function. Therefore, whatever investments is needed, is needed. You cannot look at it from the traditional lens return on investment, but you need it just because you have to exist. That is what the customer demands. So there's a kind of investment required by customer push. There is another kind of investment that is required to create the resilience that we want. So if you could combine these two to create an outlook which would say, how do I have, what are the challenges that I see in the investment space of it, and how do I also ensure resilience at a time which doesn't break the bank?
Sure. That's a very, very interesting question. So obviously, it's capacity is all about choices. We'll talk about three levels. So first is the capacity that you don't need to invest a penny, the capacity which is you already have. How do you optimize that? The second level is how do you decide where to invest in additional capacity? And the third level is who other than you would invest to debottleneck the supply chains. So on the first level, you have today an existing capacity. It's up to you to decide how to use it. So you definitely need to be choiceful. It's not business as usual. You need to select which critical areas of the business you want to protect, prioritize them over others, make tough choices for the short term, and you decide this. You want to protect based on complexity. You want to protect based on profit. You want to, you choose what you want to protect, and this way you make better use of the capacity you already have without spending a dime. The second level is when you want to invest in capacity. Now, in the traditional approach, you have to do an MPV analysis, understand the rate of investment, rate of return, and that's all based on assumptions. In the pre-COVID world, those assumptions were essentially, does it enable me to reduce my cost or not? Today, more factors have come into the equation. One is protecting service, protecting loss. I mean, for some operations, some businesses, it's a question of protecting my business. For others, it's an existential threat. So it's not like you have a choice in investing or not. So this is what really changes the approach completely. Things like automation and digitization, you might not have seen a justification for in the past. Today, you look at the cost of missed opportunity. You look at the cost of, for example, your organization. You want to protect the people, you want to protect their families. If you want to rehire and train and develop that know-how and capability. We've all suffered losses because of organization losses. So you definitely work it differently and do a different financial approach to the whole thing. The third one, which is, okay, I'm not going to invest everything by myself. At the end of the day, supply chain is an end-to-end game. We need platforms that connect, truly connect end-to-end control towers. So it's just suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, customers, all the way to the shelf. Even 3PL partners were involved in clearance, in delivery. So you need to have visibility across that. Now, this is where startups play a role. Whether they're providing a service in terms of a solution, a digital solution, or whether they are providing a platform to do things like online aggregation, like the Uber model for trucks, or co-shipment operations, co-storage operations. This way, we create synergy in the industry, we eliminate losses, and it usually comes out to be a win-win for all. It's not that you're trying to compete after the same resources, rather you're trying to collaborate and make best use of the available capacities.
Yes. I will take up a little bit more of your time at a later stage for the startup and the startup ecosystem and what that involves. Yes, you need to grade your investments based on the level of what is the objective that you want to achieve, and therefore having looked at it from a traditional net present value function doesn't seem to be the right way going ahead, because most of these technologies and investments are in technologies which are not yet out there proven. So proving an ROI on a technology which itself is not proven is a question that we need to ask as to how do we navigate this challenge. Because today, Praful talked about blockchain, we talked about machine learning. None of these technologies are proven in the sense that they have found widespread usage in the industry. So that is something that we will also look at. Serge, if I were to look at the same thing and take it a little bit more ahead, one of the challenges that we will see in the industry is the multimodal transport that needs to come in now. When we have cross-border and we are looking at port facilities, we are looking at airport facilities, we are looking at rail facilities, and we need to have a seamless integration of all these, and therefore it requires for a lot more, I would call it trade facilitating infrastructure being there, both from the government side of it and also from the private side of it. How do you see this function going ahead? The move towards multimodal, what is the kind of pressures you're seeing there? And what is the kind of infrastructure that you think needs to get built to create a better multimodal structure there?
Okay, I think it's a very valuable question related to the current market. I think this multimodal subject was on the table, okay, but we didn't look at it at a different angle. Let me explain. So today we have, as you mentioned, we have ports, we have multiple factors. We have the country regulation, we have carriers, we have forwarders, so we have different platforms which is internally linked together, okay, to manage that. So if you take the region-wise, if you take US, Europe region, and Asia, part of Asia region, the multimodal approach is already implemented. I give one example. If you take China to France, they already have a rail process ongoing. It's already working today for some companies. Okay. When you look at our perimeter, we are not yet mature, except the air freight and sea freight mode. We are not yet mature in terms of rail. We can see in certain part of our country, like we can see a small part in Kenya from Mombasa port till Nairobi. We have a small part. Okay, we are having another part which is linked to the China to Europe, linked to Turkey via route. Okay, so this is not yet mature in our zone yet. When I'm talking zone is Middle East Africa perimeter, but it's something that will be a game changer in future. Why? Because of the recent situation about the air capacity, that the airliners are having some challenges because of the situation, less passengers, high cost in terms of air freight. So people are rethinking about how can we move from point A to B a shipment. So for example, I'm giving an example. If the air freight is expensive, Schneider, what we're thinking right now is, instead of moving air freight from China to Turkey is around, let's say, $9 to $10 per kg in air freight, but we are trying to see if we can move it by road freight, because some lane is already available today. So this is one approach. The second approach, you can have a move from Asia to Europe, passing by the hub of Dubai, consolidating it, and moving it to Europe or US, etc. Okay, so those approach are more companies are looking to that today. Why? Because of one main driver is the productivity. Previously, as the lane was kind of stable, the sea freight was okay. Nowadays, with the war risk in Middle East, all those elements, the surcharge and all costs coming in, so people are rethinking how can you improve the move between point A to point B moving forward. So this is one of the examples I'm giving you, but there are multiple examples where we are trying to push, even from India to Turkey or from certain country. Why not? We can use the road instead of air freight, instead of sea freight. So it will be much faster than the sea freight coming to the country. So that is the overall perspective, but we are still at the not the maturity level today to move on this direction. But there are a lot of things to do. Very, I can say, open to think and study moving forward.
Very interesting. Yes. This is one of the challenges that we will need to face as we integrate to create a more seamless supply chain across borders and across products, and how do we get the supply chain moving with the least blockages? At least from the India perspective, for us, the state borders were equally difficult to navigate, and we had a huge amount of problems for multiple taxes and multiple permissions and permits, and which thankfully has now come down with the GST implementation. But yes, those challenges of moving goods across borders and regional integration is something that we will have to think through and create a more vibrant and more easy movement of goods. Ramit, if I were to take this up again with you, logistics as a function, and we have heard a lot of talks about technology. We have heard about, I don't know whether I should call them disruptive technologies or should I call them enabling technologies. Disruptive for me is a word, okay, it's disrupting the way you work, but it should not disrupt the supply chain per se or the movement of goods per se. If I were to look at these technologies and these emerging technologies that are there, Praful talked about blockchains and how blockchains are coming through. I think Baljit talked about machine learning and artificial intelligence and use. Do you find these usages as technologies coming up within the supply chain or the logistics as a function? And if so, what are the kind of technologies that you are watching and you would like to see more widespread within the logistics community?
Yeah,
if it's a vision.
Yeah, so I think you said it rightly. One that the state, especially in India, let's say, had a lot of role to play, and due in large part to that, I think the logistics sector has kind of lagged behind some of the other sectors where there was less interference from the state. So I mean, logistics currently, especially in India, is a significant bottleneck. You talk about the ports, you talk about the roads, and compared to, let's say, Europe and the Americas, I think this is the scenario pretty much across the MENAT region. So there's a lot that technology can do. There's a lot of potential that technology has. I think one, the governments need to recognize that potential and harness that potential. Secondly, of course, from an organizational perspective, a bit of the mindset needs to change, saying that logistics is not really a cost function, but can easily be a source of revenue by giving those value-added services. Now, whether it's better visibility that a lot of the esteemed colleagues talked about, customers actually pay for that better service. Having said that, and from that, what follows is the use of technologies. Personally, I think Internet of Things, especially when it comes to logistics, industrial Internet of Things, is something that is going to have an impact sooner than some of the more exotic technologies. We are already toying with the idea of drones doing a physical check, physical verification of inventory at the warehouses. We're already looking at harnessing big data for a lot of our logistics analytics. So there is a lot of potential in logistics. I think we are getting there. Probably not at the speed that I would really like to see that, but we're definitely getting there. Yeah.
What would be your wish list if you were to look at it?
So from a technology standpoint, okay, the first, if I will not restrict myself purely just to technology, but clearly, like I said, less of government intervention, more opening up, that would be one. Looking, the organizations recognizing the ability of logistics to be a value-added services, that would be another one. Now coming to technologies, I think I am really looking forward to the Internet of Things, but also we've also started toying with the idea of machine learning. So I'm really, that's something that's on my wish list. Blockchain is something I think has immense potential, but I personally think is a few years down the line. The time is not yet come for that. But yeah, I think these I would consider all of these to be my wish list, and I would really, let's say, hope that I can see these in the next few months and the next few years.
Oh, that should be music to a technology service provider. I hope some of them are listening. Shailen, if I were to come back to you, we talked about cross-border movement of goods. We talked about the challenges there. What essentially is happening over a period of time is that the geography of production and the geography of distribution is changing, creating its own series of risks within our logistics function. How do you evaluate the risks within the logistics function? What do you think are the major risks that we should be worried about? And do we have a mechanism in place to monitor them?
I think the biggest risk that I would see in terms of logistics is managing the resources. So I would give you an example of the GCC area. What happened was that a lot of countries went into lockdowns and trucks were stuck on the borders, and drivers did not have food, they could not come back, and there was no clarity that which border is open, which border is closed. And typically most of the companies, unlike in the Europe and in the West, US, here most of the resources are leased out, so I could be a one driver truck driving my own truck affiliated with some very large 3PL company, but they don't take care of me as an employee, so is my healthcare taken care of? I'm driving long hours, is that taken care of? Again, the track and trace is not there in many trucks. You just have the basic GPS, which tells you where the vehicle is. But is it, proactive? Does it tell you that the truck has broken down or something is wrong? So all these things need to be taken care of. It's a big risk if your resource is not taken care of. The guy, the driver who's driving your $1 million truck with $1 million assets inside, it's really painful to see, and most of the Asian countries, I think in India, some of the companies have done this good effort whereby a truck driver does only 8-hour shift and every day he's able to come back to his home. So here those things are not there. A lot of resources were Syrian, they were Pakistani, they were Indian, they went back to their country and suddenly there was shortage of resources. So if people are taken proper care of, that is one big risk. And worldwide we are aware, including US, that there is a massive shortage of drivers everywhere. US, I think, has more than 27-30% shortage of drivers as of now. And luckily for them, more and more ladies are coming into this profession, and they are more stable, more reliable as always. So they are somehow managing. So I think one of the biggest risks is this. Second thing is that I think sooner than later, we should have a borderless movement for goods, at least, if we need to make this a success. So like a EU, truck movement, you could move from one country to the other to the third. In one day, trucks do cover and cross 2 to 3 countries. Here, you could be standing at a border for 1 day, 2 days, you do not know how long, So I think that borderless movement has to be enabled. A borderless GCC could be a good beginning, and probably at some time, add other countries like Jordan, Egypt, and all these countries can have a borderless movement. So I think that will mitigate a lot of risk, a lot of uncertainties, associated with this cross-border trucking. And as we see that across GCC, The rail network is not so well developed as of now. It's still under development. So 95 to 97% movement is either by sea or by trucks, and trucking is pretty fast. Sea
Yes.
is slightly slower when compared with trucking, and we have a good network of road. So we should be able to leverage that. When the traveling time between one country to other country is less than 1 day, why should the truck stand at the border for 1 day to 2 days? So
Yes.
these are some of the risks I think that we can mitigate.
Interesting. In fact, it kind of resonates with what we are observing in India too. In India, driver availability was out of every 1,000 trucks, we had 750 drivers, which has now gone down to 600. And hopefully it stays at 600, but the ministry projection says that it might go down still further, which essentially means half your fleet is going to be standing without drivers. Yeah, if I were to pick that up with you as an issue, drivers are one of the least talked about and least focused people within the logistics function. We all talk about everything else. We talk about every good thing that we need. But the guy who actually sits there in the truck and drives along the road, that's the guy most often we ignore. What are the issues that you see there, and what are the kind of developments that you would like to bring about in creating a better and more equitable platform for drivers? Before driverless comes in, there's going to be still a long time here.
Yes. So the question for me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So Shailen touched on many points, all 100% valid and spot on. Obviously, if you're going to wait for driverless vehicles, then maybe you're going to end up waiting forever. But there are definitely solutions that we have. And some of it is technology, and some of it is just basic operations. As we were saying before, the drivers are the first line workers, so they are really risking a lot, even before COVID, by the going a few days on the road and so on to deliver the products. So they are a fantastic resource in the supply chain, and we need to protect them. We need to, like any strategic scarce resource, and again, this is not a regional issue because of the borders only. This is a global issue, shortages everywhere. So first, again, the same approach. So first, before we do anything different, how do I do more with what I already have? So how do I improve the truck turnaround times? How do I reduce the empty miles, less air in the trucks that are being carried? This will all create operational capacity that will enable drivers to do more trips per month. The other issues are, logistical in terms of like the borders. So you need to do something about the visas, the waiting time, and a lot of regulation that somehow block some ideas and opportunities, like things like drop lot. So I can use the head to run more than one trailer. Today I can't do that in the Gulf because of the number plate has to match and so on. So things like this can be addressed if we focus on them. And then finally, what's in it for them? What's in it for the driver? There needs to be an incentive program. We need to incentivize them. There are many middlemen in the chain because you might have one driver who owns one truck. You have others who work for a truck company. They're not really able to access enough business, even though there is business out there, and there'll be companies who are looking for drivers, but drivers don't have access to them. The industry depends on a lot of middlemen. So this is where technology comes in. You create a platform, an aggregator platform, which allows drivers to access all the business that's being up for grabs in the coming 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, whatever horizon you want. And at the same time, you create incentives for the drivers to own the trucks, right? So through financing systems, through the banks, or even could be endorsed by government, could be endorsed by industry, by sector. where somehow they act as the guarantee, and the driver would, have an incentive to take it as a profession, long-term incentive. Eventually, he owns the trucks, he makes more money. I don't think it's a profession that's going away anytime soon. So the drop in availability of drivers is really not justified. We need to do something about it.
Yes, across this phenomenon across the world, right from US to, if you look at any part of the world, and you find that in India we are also finding that the children of drivers don't want to be drivers. So you have a huge entry barrier to driver as a profession itself because of lack of respect, for lack of facilities, being on the road. Serge, if I were to take the same theme with you on drivers and also link it to, since you are also into an area where a truck can technically cross borders, and a driver can drive across borders. What are the kind of challenges that you see in this? What are the kind of changes that you would like? You did mention also about drivers having to drop off at a border and then another guy taking it over. These kind of how are you going to manage these things? And if you can also add to this your opinion about one of the biggest issues that logistics we have not been talking about, and I would like all my panelists to also comment on that, the issue of sustainability, environmental concerns and carbon footprint.
Okay, so let me take the point. I think Shailen and Ziad cover almost all the topic, but I will just based on my experience in the region, and also I can maybe touch base on the root cause and what can be the opportunity for this topic, which has not been touched so far on the higher level and from the country perspective as well. So we had a case in Turkey, as you mentioned, where we had a trade between France to Turkey movement. During the COVID, on top of it, the people from the Turkish guys cannot go to France, and the French guy cannot go to Turkey. So what happened that they were coming to a border in Turkey, okay? So they were first of all a long queue, and then in between they have a queue of the driver. So they were swapping between the countries. So that created, I think, an average of 10 days delays, okay? Which on top of the COVID situation was not supporting the business, and this was quite kind of really a pain point for the business. This is one area from Europe to Middle East Africa. When you look about here, what Shailen mentioned, that most of the nationality left the country, which we have a shortage of the people, and to manage today, it's manageable because the volume across the board has been reduced by around 15 to 20%. Okay, so the impact is not seen yet. Okay, but in coming months and year, we will see this impact coming again. Okay, so today we are leveraging with the volume impact that you have in our region, but moving forward, we'll have this challenge coming there. Okay, so what is the root cause of this challenge? So you can see the transportation driver are mainly older, like 45 plus. Okay, and they're mostly male driver. Okay, and the second root cause is the lifestyle of a truck driver is not something people dream of. Okay, so they have couple of action. We talk about US, we talk about Europe, we talked about in Middle East and Africa. Maybe we'll have some challenges coming soon, but they have some really first step that the country as a government has to make a clear regulation. Okay, what can be the regulation? One of them can be decrease the decrease the time on the road. Okay, to put something maybe less time the driver can be on the road, to have a regulation on the lower driving age group. When I'm talking lower, is 18 to 22, okay, which is sometime in the country which is the highest rate in terms of unemployment. Okay,
Yes.
so this is to leverage that, to explain that this is an opportunity for them to go to the market and etc. That is one of the area. I think Ziad mentioned about the pay. Okay, so to increase the pay, but that is also a negative impact on the pricing to the customer. So you have the highest driver. So how you will compensate to your customer when you recharge them, when you give the quotation on that? Okay, and the last, I think Shailen mentioned, more women are coming into the picture. And also in US, recently they started to have veterans to get also the opportunity to help this community. Okay, so I think this is the somehow to coverage how to tackle the situation, but the key driver is the government and the country has to take the ownership on that.
Yes, so you hit up on a beautiful point that if you need to pay your driver better, the shipper needs to be generous enough to give a little bit more to the 3PL provider. But unfortunately, the shippers work under a cost-cutting paradigm, and the logistics service provider on a cost-plus paradigm. So somewhere between this cost-cut and cost-plus, we need to navigate and hit a good ground. Ramit, I have a question for you. This is from Shafa Kuram. Many companies don't consider logistics in supply chain planning and focus more on inventory management and demand planning. What should you do? Whether it should be considered separately or it should form a part of planning? Logistics should be a part of planning.
So if I understand, the question is that many companies do not consider logistics as part of their planning cycles and whether it should be included.
And they only look at inventory planning.
So I think logistics is a very key part of the overall planning cycle. The companies definitely need to consider logistics as part of the planning, the overall planning. There's just too many things that can go wrong if logistics is not considered to be part of the planning cycle. Now, especially for the MENA region, the logistics cycle times can be way higher than a place like Europe, because for the simple reason that we get a lot of our raw materials coming in maybe from Europe or US, you know, and the logistics times run into months, not even weeks. If we are not considering those factors of logistics in our planning cycles, I think those companies, especially when we talk of MENAT, we're kind of really, you know, we have a real blind spot there. So I think logistics is absolute key. And then coming to the countries, you know, even within a country like India, logistics is a make or a break. You know, for the same distance in some place like US, it'll probably take 2 days, but in India, with all the bottlenecks that we have, it probably takes 7 days. If we don't factor that in, we'll never be able to deliver the products on time. So yeah, absolute key.
Yeah, I think you know, I've always been talking at any forum about two issues that are there, which as a logistics function we need to be very aware of. One is sustainability, which we have not talked about in this issue. I need to wrap up very quickly, but if I could just ask Ziad if very quickly in a minute's time he could give us an opinion on supply chain, on sustainability.
Sure. So very quickly, I mean, carbon footprint of our operations is not really rocket science. It can be measured, and there are outsourced companies that can. You give them a few metrics like what you're shipping, the weight, the distance traveled, and the mode of transportation, and they will work out and give you the carbon footprint. Typically, air freight is the most expensive, and then you have road a bit more than sea. But in the world of, as we were discussing before, on resilience, and you need to have business continuity, you need to have multimodal, you need to have more than one option. For sure, you need to look at the full scope and full horizon, and look at it like any other metric that you manage. And the good news is it always goes hand in hand with cost reduction. If you reduce your cost, you're reducing your environmental footprint, and vice versa. Now, technology will play a role. So electric vehicles, and then for site operations, solar panels and clean energy and all that is definitely there. There are even companies that offer financing for implementing solutions. They go and they study your electric consumption on a site, and they will tell you, look, you're wasting X amount of energy because of weaknesses in your system. They can address it, and they offer you, for example, that they will finance the equipment. You don't need to buy it. They'll put up the capital, and then you pay them from the savings that you make over the years. So really, today, sustainability is a no-brainer. It's not rocket science. We know how to address it. It's just that we need to put it high on our priorities.
As I wrap up, I would like one of you to give me in one sentence what is your vision for logistics in future going forward. If you could start with Shailen. One sentence, sir, what is your vision of logistics for the future, which also would be a kind of summing up of this whole process.
So more technology, more leveraging technology for last mile delivery, last mile delivery visibility, better facility for drivers, which will ultimately boost to lower cost, better productivity, and overall, better performance of your assets. I think these two are very key as far as I am concerned.
Serge?
From my perspective, the vision of the logistics will be I think on the three directions. One will be safety. Because of the current situation, we have to be cautious on that. The second element is the people, because the people is driving all the changes that we are doing. And the third one will be the digital transformation linked to end-to-end visibility, IoT, and blockchain, and etc.
Thank you, Serge. Ziad?
Yes, so I'll say that the industry is evolving. The technology is evolving. The nature of the roles, the work we do is also evolving. This was the case before COVID with the fourth industrial revolution, and will continue to be the case after COVID because of the challenges that we're facing and the learnings we have. It is a very exciting space to be. The work we do today and in the coming 5 years was never thought of 10 years back, or even less. So I would definitely recommend people to continue to engage, to continue to learn and relearn what you think you know, so that we can accelerate this transformation, make it successful for everyone.
Thank you, Ziad. Ramit, your vision for the future.
So I think logistics is going to be in the center of the action. I think from a future standpoint, I would really advise current students to take up logistics as a serious career. There's all the action that's really going to happen in logistics. I think my colleagues already touched upon the importance of technology in logistics. Logistics is core to an economy, so therefore I think it plays an immense role in elevating an entire economy. So yes, I think these are the thoughts that I have on future of logistics. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that last one line from everyone actually summed up the entire discussion, and I don't need to add anything more to it. Definitely, I need to thank all of you for taking your time out and discussing these issues with us. I should also thank you for being crisp, short and sweet, so that we could cover a lot of areas within. Logistics is such a diverse function. To get the entire essence of logistics in an hour's discussion wouldn't have been possible without your huge amount of cooperation and the crisp way in which you have articulated each of your positions. A really commendable job. I thank you a lot for your ideas and the way you articulated it and the kind of nuances you brought about. Thank you, gentlemen. Hope to see you soon. We will be meeting you. We will be keeping in touch with you. And Jaisal, it's over to you now.
Thanks, Girish, and thanks, everyone. It was great hearing all of you.
Thank you everyone, and thank you, Girish, for
All the best.
Thank you, everybody.